The Bengali culture has always had a fascination with the supernatural. Ghost stories or Bhutar Golpo is something that transcends regions, cultures, and religions. Today, we are in conversation with one such supernatural seeker and lover, author Arundhati
Hello.
Nath, whose book The Phantom Howl is a curation of 11 ghost stories set in rural Bengal, dealing with different kinds of ghosts that we find in the Bengali culture. Welcome to the print, Arundhati. I can't help but begin this interview with the story that you told in the book about how your grandmother would tell you the ghost stories, and one of these stories left an indelible mark in
Yeah.
your mind about her brush with the other side. So, if you could tell us a little about that, and was your grandmother able to convince you about ghosts in general?
Firstly, thank you very much for having me today, Diptata. I'm very happy to speak to you today because I can see a fellow seeker of the supernatural in you, and that gives me a lot of joy and warmth. To come back to my grandmother, she was this remarkable presence in my childhood who would regale all of us cousins when we would sort of cloister around her in the holidays with a lot of her supernatural stories. But I think I was one of the few who was transfixed by them because there was this tale of her childhood which all of us, including other friends, generations of many friends, had to hear this. It was this tussle that she had, a tug of war between the ghosts and the humans. So this was apparently when she was in Borishal, which is in Bangladesh. Now she was growing up in Borishal in a village. Her father was a doctor, an Ayurvedic physician, and they used to have these large Shotonarayan pujos in the house. So at night, one pujo was on and there was a kirtan on, and her uncle was sitting there. She was a child, a slip of a girl at that point. She lay her head on his legs, on his thighs, and went to sleep. At a certain point, she woke up to find that she was being hauled up a staircase, which was supposed to be going up right up to the terrace of their home, where apparently, if she reached, she wouldn't have come out alive. And she could feel an army, a legion of ghosts taking her up. And she felt these human beings, her relatives, her family were pulling her down. So it was a tug of war between the ghosts. And she always finished this with this relish. She used to say that one more step, and I would have been dead because I would have been inside that room, the chiler kotha that used to call it. So that was to be on top of the terrace, and she said that was it. And and her uncle, who was her sort of her minder at the pujo, told her later that he actually found that his hands had been tied with a fite, a ribbon, and he was sitting like this, so he couldn't have stopped her even if he had wanted to. And he found that his hands were tied and she was hauled up. She had been obviously taken by this unseen army, this spectral army. And that I found was a fascinating story. I mean, each time I thought about it, that you're sitting in a neighborhood pujo and there is this all this rituals happening around you, and suddenly the supernatural element has arrived and taken you unaware. So that was one of the stories of my childhood.
So, would you say that your grandmother did actually instill a love for ghost stories
Oh
in you,
yes,
which eventually led to the culmination of this
certainly,
book?
certainly. She inspired me, and I've always felt very inspired by her because she, even at that age, they couldn't finish. She couldn't finish beyond school, and she was married off at the age of 15. But she never gave up her love for reading. I have never seen her without a book in her hand. She could quote every Bengali poet. She could quote Tagore at whatever occasion. She would read. She's the one who introduced me to Bonkim and to Tagore, and I wasn't living in Calcutta. I was living in Delhi. I grew up in Delhi, so Bengali wasn't a language I was learning in school. Because she used to tell me these stories, I told my mom to teach me the script so that I could keep reading. And I think she instilled a love not just for ghosts, also for literature and for reading, and that opened up so many worlds as a child. If you could get to read in so many other languages other than English, if you could read in
Absolutely.
Bengali, I think that helped a lot. So
So, following up on that question, Arundhati, because it's a fascinating story, and again, you know, there is this one particular we in Bengali culture have always been like we have grown up on a very steady dose of Bhuter Golpo,
yeah,
which is why I think we are taught not to be afraid of it.
yeah.
We also have these rituals and cultures like the one that even you talked about, Bhut
Bhut
Chaturdashi,
yeah.
which happens right on the day before Kali Pujo or
Right,
the Diwali, that as we call it, and we light up the 14 diyas in order to help our ancestors come back to their home. Why do you think the it's a very, it's something that even I wonder about, is how the Bengali culture and our interaction with the concept of the spectral or the supernatural is quite distinct from other cultures.
true.
I mean, here I would like to quote a part where you write in your book, which I really like, is, to me, the relationship between these departed souls and humankind felt like one of camaraderie and curiosity, perhaps even glowing in the warmth of amused acceptance, but never fear, helping the dead or the attas find their way to their abodes and night before a goddess who fittingly wears a necklace of skulls, a bindi of blood, and wanders freely in cremation ghats to be worshipped. If this isn't respectful with the otherworldly, then what is? So, if
True.
you could elaborate a little on that, because I found this very interesting.
Thank you. So, yes, I do feel amongst the Bengali sort of legions of ghosts and also in the Bengali mindset, we don't always fear them. Yes, of course, they are fearful, and there are so many types of the Bengali ghosts, which I can tell you later about. But each one of them comes with that sense of curiosity. We want to find out more about them. We don't want to banish them. We want them to coexist with us in some sort of a symbiotic, joyous acceptance from our side, and hopefully they will then clear us of any wrongdoings. That is what
Absolutely.
our sort of belief systems are. And because of Goddess Kali's persona, which she's this all powerful goddess, but she coexists with the dead. She's roaming around cremation ghats. She's wearing this beautiful skull of, a beautiful garland of skulls, and she's just this persona who is carrying and embodying a female power, a spirit. And yet there is we accept her as a goddess. We're it's not
Absolutely.
it's sacred, and yet the sacred has a certain sense of spirit, supernatural. So I feel maybe because of that, and also with Shiva we romanticize him because he's walking around with this yogini dakinis, and his entire entourage is of all these people who are sometimes pretty high on marijuana, but roaming around with him, dancing with him in some Shan Ghats. So there is that whole Tandav culture which we all appreciate in Bengal. And I think that has led to us accepting ghosts as part of our everyday reality. And
Absolutely.
hence there is fear, because otherwise there is no supernatural element in a story. The thriller, the suspense only comes from fear. But I find most of the time that stories, at least when I was translating them, I found a certain acceptance and a presence which was a steady and a benevolent presence. For instance, Paternal Legacy, Babi Bhutabhushan, where he actually encounters his aunt, his Pishi, his paternal
Lokhi.
aunt, and Lokhi, who's there, and she's not harmful. She meets him every evening. She slips in and out of his living room, stands in the veranda, tells him when mutton is getting cooked in the next
Absolutely.
house. So there is that, she's not there to harm. But yes, there are those dissatisfied souls who want to harm, who want to come in and hamper your everyday life, or may take your life in return, or in revenge. There are the vengeful ghosts also. I wouldn't say they don't exist, because otherwise why would we be so enamored of the supernatural? I think it's like a roller coaster ride where you're going to be scared, yet you want to seek. So I
Absolutely.
think that is historically also, if you look at the beginning of the genre, when it all began, it was the idea of the haunted house. Even Plautus, when he wrote his first play about a haunted house in ancient Rome, it was about, the idea was the haunted house. And the Gothic literature, which sort of sprung later, also dealt with the vampire demon and the
Absolutely.
architecture of the haunted house. And I think in a way, Bengali literature intermixed so vibrantly, so abundantly with so many influences. And all our writers, starting from even Thakurmar Jhuli, all our writers have experimented with that field. So I think by now we have also come to a stage where we know they're there, and we like them and yet don't like them.
Absolutely. So, coming back to the book, so you have a very specific collection of 11
Yeah,
stories.
yeah.
So, how did when did you decide that maybe I should do a translation of these stories? These stories need to, go around in a larger way. And
Yeah.
how did you specifically choose these 11 stories out of like so much of the stories that we read, listen, or hear about?
True. So actually, a lot of the stories I had heard. For instance, Hemendra Kumar Ray, he's very well known. So the Bhuter Raja was a story which I had read myself in my childhood, and I found it fascinating because there's that Santhal song, and then the
Mm-hmm.
dead of the night in the forest. So I always knew I wanted to do Hemen Roy, and other than that, Tagore was of course one had to experiment, and Tagore has a, which we'll come to later, there's a certain intellectual jostling in the ghost story that when you any story that he writes which fascinated me, but I wanted a range from from this pulp fiction genre to high literature, where I would talk about at the Phantom's Howl. Actually, I found very little about the writer, Jogesh Chandra. Very
Hmm.
little is known about him, but the story is distinctly gothic. There are limbs, and
Absolutely.
there is a rivulet of blood, and there is a lot of this vampire type presence and dissatisfied spirits. There is this dance of the phantoms inside a room. So that I found gothic. And if you compare that, say, with Tagore's The Skeleton, where a woman's identity is slowly being revealed to you, a woman's desire is slowly being revealed. So I really wanted a range, and as I went through my research, some of this I knew, some of this I wanted to find out more. As I read old Shuktara magazines, where I'd taken a lot of the stories from, and anthologies of my own, which I had. Vibhuti Bhushan's anthology I also possessed. Some of these stories, Hemen Roy also, of course, I possessed. I went through them. I had to find stories which I thought would also resonate with a modern reader. A lot of it is, a lot of it is pure myth and pure legend that doesn't really work anymore. You need a context. You need that idea of the landscape, which induces fear. You need the atmosphere. You need the ambience. So wherever I thought it would actually resonate with modern readerships, children, I mean teenagers and adults alike, I took those stories.
And which one of these stories was for you the perhaps the most difficult to translate? Because when you
Yeah,
translate from a from say Bengali in this case to English,
yeah.
there are words that we use colloquially. There are words that perhaps do not have a meaning or an existence in English. So then, in order to keep the essence of the story intact, especially because these are supernatural stories,
Yeah,
so there's an atmosphere, how difficult was it to then maintain that essence
yeah.
and let that essence flow into the English translation?
There was a lot of jostling in my own head, because I felt that each time I translated a different writer, my own language, my own idiom has to change. For instance,
Absolutely.
when you're doing an Amarindra Munshi, again, he's not very well known, but the story is amazing, that inside the water spinach
Yeah.
forest marsh. But if you do a Khudito Pashan, the famished stone as I've called it, the entire the breadth and the genre become different, because here you're reading a more colloquial Bengali, where you would translate in a different way. But then you're looking at Tagore, or even, and Vibhuti Bhushan, for instance, wasn't using very complicated prose. It
Hmm.
was easy to understand. In Tagore's case, of course, the prose was more complex but more polished and had a certain patina to it, which you don't want to remove in your English translation. You want to keep that. So I found, actually, in a way, Kudito Pashan one of the hardest ones that I did, and I was at the end of it decently satisfied with what came of it, because I tried to keep that the element of that the historical narrative which is emerging in the background,
Hmm.
with the idea of the supernatural as the narrator tells you. So yeah, I found that one of the harder ones. But what was really taking a lot of mind space was this transitioning from literally one writer's mindset or perspective of a language to mine, where I didn't want to spoil their understanding of the way they've written it, and yet keep it relevant for modern readers. So I had to change my voice each time I did a new writer.
Right.
And that was a bit hard. But at the end of the day, if you enjoy the stories, and if you feel for them, they speak to your soul, then the translation kind of flows.
In your stories, in your translation specifically, there are a host of ghosts that we have always heard about. There's the dark bungalow ghost or the colonial ghost. There is
Yeah.
the Bhute Raja, the king
Yeah.
of ghosts. There's the Petni.
Right.
So, if you could tell our audience a little bit about the different kind of ghosts that we
Yeah.
have in our culture.
True.
And then the second part of the question is, which was personally very fascinating for me, is how almost every author that even you have dealt with creates us also there's this sense of a very sardonic humor. There's this like we were
Yeah.
talking about Konkal or Skeleton,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
Rabindranath Tagore's
Yeah.
story, and there is this part where this woman who is talking about her romance with the man, and she says that, would you like for me to end it here? And then the listener says that it would be entirely desirable. But then she says that, but then where would the ridicule element come
Yeah.
from?
That's
And then she says, won't that make the story needlessly somber?
yeah. True.
So if you could talk a little bit about these two things, the different kinds of, the different, I won't say species, but the kinds of
Yeah. The
ghosts that
ghost.
we have in our culture, and we have grown up listening about them
True.
and interacting with them. And then, like we discussed earlier, the entire element of perhaps some of them being deviant, but never being fearful of them. And all of
Yeah.
these stories, specifically the stories that we are talking about here, all of them contain some or the other element of humor.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
intermingled very organically in the story.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it also gives you that feeling that, this is something that you actually enjoy. This is not
Right.
something that you are scared of. You're like,
Absolutely.
okay, what happens to her next? So maybe I want to know that story. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
I actually, it's very interesting that you do ask that. So I'll come to the humor part later. The first part about your question on the types of ghosts. There are actually a multitude of types. If you look at it, there is the Brahmodaito, which is the purest form of the Bengali ghost because he's supposedly a Brahmin ghost. Then there is, of course, the Kondhokata, the one who's got no, it's a headless monster
Headless.
who's there in your dreams, in your nightmares. And then there is the Jakbhut, who apparently guards your coffers with so that nobody outside your lineage can take away your wealth. So he stays inside the shinduk, so to speak. Then, of course, there is the Nishibhut, the ones at night. And then there is the Pechobhut, apparently, which I found out later, who apparently goes and haunts children, little children, which is quite terrifying when when I read that. And then there's the whole idea of the female ghost in Bengal. And I found in my own research, as I looked at the stories, 90% of the ghosts are women. And I don't know what that says for our sort of cultural consciousness.
Absolutely. I was
But
actually going to come to that later.
so that it does, I feel it does designate a certain amount of power to the woman to be always the haunter and not the haunted, right?
Absolutely.
So then there's the Petni, who apparently died dissatisfied and was supposedly considered unmarried and the hence dissatisfied. That I'm not sure I agree with, but that is how they've sort of pictured her. Then there's the Shakchurni, who was a married ghost who wants to return to her married state and doesn't want to, is roaming around, and apparently she has these feet which go backwards.
Backwards.
And then there are the Dakinis and the Pishachinis and the witches. Daini comes from that word. But the Dakini Yoginis are actually the ones who are roaming around with Shiv and Kali. They are the companions. So yeah, there is a legend, and the Dark Bungalow ghost I found fascinating because again it comes from the idea of the haunted house, which again is one of the most enduring leitmotifs across supernatural fiction. It's not just Bengali. So, and the Dark Bungalow ghost actually rules that territory, his own or her own territory, and will be there lurking in some form or the other. And coming to the humor, it's interesting that you do ask me that because I do feel that as a Bengali, you perhaps understand the understated humor because I was asked a question by someone who's not native of Bengal, and he didn't understand this, and he said that you keep saying that there's a generous and heavy dose of humor in the stories, but as a non-Bengali, frankly, he couldn't understand that where the humor was, because there is that, it's a subtle humor, it's a sardonic humor. For instance, in the Skeleton, it's like something we can relate to when somebody's just telling you something which you're scared of, and you want to get out of the fear, you want to laugh it off, you try and be wry, you have that wry sense, okay, can you get on with it now, tell me, and don't want to betray either your actual mystified that you are or your fear. So in all of them I found there is a certain sense of, for instance, the First Class Ghost, where that itself is a hysterically funny story, where he's encountering a Shaib booth in a compartment and then he's left naked and without clothes,
That's it.
beaten black and blue. It kept me laughing throughout my translation. And I think it is because of this idea in Bengal that you accept them as part of your everyday reality. I mean, they're there in the afternoons, there when you're walking around river banks alone, or you're going past an after Rat Dupure Bhute Dhare kind of thing. In the Dupure also the booth comes. In the afternoon also the booth. I remember in the afternoons, long afternoon summer vacations when I'd be my grandmom used to tell us all to go to sleep for a few hours. I think she wanted to rest too. She used to always tell us, if you don't sleep, the booth is outside, because in the afternoons is when it comes. And you know, those large Calcutta homes with those large trees outside, and the balconies were long marble balconies. You couldn't really see anyone. You did feel a certain sense of disquiet. And because we knew they were there, I think that is where in our own mindsets we felt that why make antagonists out of them? Let's
Absolutely.
accept them, and at the end of the day, Bengalis have a hugely entertaining sense of humor. And then you endow everything with around you with a certain sense of humor, lace it with it. So I think that goes a lot into our fiction too.
We will come to that question on the female
Yeah,
ghosts, which was personally to me, I think
yeah,
that was something that really stood out in this book, because there's this part where you write that our understanding of the otherworldly is a cerebral exercise, an interplay between emotion and intellect.
yeah,
And then in almost seven of your stories, it's a female apparition or
yes,
a disembodied voice who
voice,
plays the central role, suggesting that, you know, the female spirit is more of a prominent figure in these
yeah,
stories. So, you know, sometimes it's also used as a derogatory term.
yes, of
When we
course.
get angry or when we are cursing at someone, we say, oh, you are a Petni or you are a Shakchani. But if you go into the details of these characters or these caricatures, we actually see that they are kind of subverting the patriarchal norms that are
Absolutely,
there in the society.
absolutely.
They choose, like you said, they choose to be the haunters instead of the haunted.
Yeah.
When you were doing this translation, the was it a deliberate choice to keep it a more female centric
Uh, to be
story?
to be honest with you, yes, because I mean, and inadvertently also, I found that most of my research pointed towards the female ghost. Very few where I didn't find. Most of the stories which stood out to me had the woman as the protagonist and the ghost. I mean, you know, even if you look at that the one I talked about, the forest inside the forest water spinach marsh, it's an girl, young girl who's
Yeah, it's
rowing
actually one of
endlessly.
my
It
favorite
was I found
stories.
it quite fascinating, and of course the skeleton is all about a woman protagonist. I did feel that because most of the all the writers are male, because I was focusing on a certain period in writing,
Hmm.
which sort of was this late 19th to mid 20th. So I couldn't really find too many women writers who I wanted to talk about in that way, the ones which I had written as classics. So when I was doing that, what stood out to me is, because if I'm using so many men writers, I may as well find the protagonists who are women. In a way, it balances out, and on the other way, it also shows that men knew the power of the women. They didn't. I mean, Tagore, for instance, was fascinating because the skeleton is about this woman coming out of. I mean, literally coming out of the folds of this supernatural realm and telling you her
Absolutely.
own life,
Narrating
and
her
it
own
was a
story.
sad life in many ways. She was, and that comment in where she's vilified because she loses her husband and she's widowed, and her father-in-law tells her she's a venom girl.
Absolutely.
And that is so common in our sort of Indian patriarchal myth, and you know, the way women are perceived. You're unlucky, you're widowed because you're unlucky. She talks about it in her story, and how she tries to emerge out of it. I thought she tried to struggle, and she tried to rebel against the stigma of being a widow. She fell in love again, and
Absolutely.
she so in that way I find all the stories where they have these women protagonists, even the one the water spinach marsh, the girl is a rebel. She didn't want to conform to social
Absolutely.
standards of that time, where she, as a 15-year-old, she needs to be home, she needs to go to sleep at a certain time, she needs to be cooking. But no, she left. She wanted to row her boat, and she said that the river was my friend, it called out to me, I needed to be rowing. So I found that very fascinating, that you know, in this way where these men writers are writing about women, they are endowing them with a certain power, with a certain supernatural power which is beyond the natural. So maybe
Absolutely.
in a way, that is the mindset, that's the consciousness we need to look at and think about when we talk about the supernatural.
Going ahead. Absolutely. While I was reading the book, I also came to know that you are an avid watcher of supernatural
Yeah.
movies and
Yeah,
books.
yeah.
So, would you give our audience any suggestions, apart from your book, of
No, of
course,
course not.
a suggestion for a movie or a book that anyone who's interested in the supernatural
I
should
think the
read?
best, I mean, no, in terms of movies, I think still the scariest film I have seen still is The Omen. Nothing takes away the fear of The Omen and Rosemary's Baby.
Rosemary's Baby is actually
Yeah, so
good.
those had such indelible impact on me. I said no, I must read more, and of course now I watched everything that keeps coming out, and there are now I forget their names because they're on a mill kind of thing you keep watching. But I would say begin your supernatural journey with the original Omen. It was quite fascinating. Unfortunately, I haven't really seen that many Bengali movies where that sense of the fear which builds, which envelops you when you actually are transfixed and you watch. I haven't recently. I haven't seen too
I think
many.
it's, I mean, for me, it's more of the humorous side because I remember one of the movies that I watched as a kid was Bhutar Bhavishya.
Bhutra I
And my
loved.
family used to
Bhutra
love it. Like, it was a Sunday ritual. Oh, you have nothing to do. Let's just
Oh,
sit and
that was a
watch it.
fascinating. But Poti Pishi Bormi Baksha also. It was also Leela Majumdar was superb
Yes,
depicting
absolutely.
the ghost. I think I would like to next get to that. The women writers of Bengal.
I think
So yeah,
that would be
so,
a step up.
yeah. The next one should be that. Let's see.
But thank you, Arundhati. This
Thank
has
you.